when Ibrahim Traorè was invited to take part in a conference on leadership and Africa's development. After the event, he decided to wander the city streets alone, reflecting on the passionate debates and conversations that had unfolded earlier. With no security entourage or advisors nearby, he preferred to stay under the radar, dressed in simple clothes and carrying only a notebook where he jotted down his thoughts. Traorè blended easily into the urban rhythm. As he strolled, his attention was suddenly drawn to an unusual commotion outside a local restaurant. A small crowd had gathered, buzzing with excitement around a tall, charismatic man whose warm smile left no room for doubt. Didier Drogba, legendary footballer and national icon of Côte d'Ivoire. Traorè hesitated for a moment, caught between his desire to remain anonymous and a genuine curiosity to observe Drogba as he interacted with fans. But then, something unexpected happened. Drogba, who had been signing autographs and posing for photos, turned his gaze directly toward him. "Ibrahim Traorè," he exclaimed, visibly surprised as he stepped forward. "Is that really you?" Traorè offered a modest smile and nodded. "Yes, it's me. I'm here for the conference." Drogba reached out to shake his hand, but the gesture quickly transformed into a heartfelt embrace. "It's an honor to meet you in person," he said with unmistakable admiration. "I've been following your work in Burkina Faso. You inspire so many people, including me." Traorè was slightly taken aback by the compliment. "You're the one who should be an inspiration," he replied. "Your achievements on and off the field are legendary." The two men began to chat casually, drifting away from the curious crowd. Drogba suggested they continue the conversation somewhere quieter. "Come have a drink with me," he said, leading Traorè to a reserved table in a quiet corner of the restaurant. "I want to understand more about your ideas for the future of Burkina Faso." As they sat, Traorè quickly realized that Drogba wasn't just making small talk. He seemed deeply interested in understanding the young Burkinabe leader's motivations and vision. "What truly drives you, Ibrahim?" Drogba asked, leaning in. "Why did you choose this path, knowing the obstacles you'd face?" Traorè paused before answering, his voice thick with emotion. "I grew up watching my people suffer," he said. "I saw how unjust systems kept my country locked in cycles of poverty and dependence. I knew I had to do something, even if it only made a small difference." Drogba nodded slowly, clearly moved by the response. Then he said something that stunned Traorè. "You know, Ibrahim," he began, his tone serious, "I've always admired your courage. But what you're doing now, it goes beyond politics. You're touching something far greater than I ever could." Traorè's eyes widened in disbelief. "What do you mean? You've done so much for your country. Your foundation alone has changed thousands of lives." Drogba shook his head gently. "Yes, my foundation has been impactful, but I did that with external resources, with international support. You, Ibrahim, are building something from within, and that's something I've never been able to do." The words echoed in Traorè's mind. He had never viewed his work in that light. To him, he was simply doing his best with the tools available. But now, hearing this from someone like Drogba, he felt the weight of his responsibility and the magnitude of his potential impact. "That can't be," Traorè murmured to himself. "You're a global icon, Didier. Your reach is far greater than mine." Drogba gave a soft smile, but remained firm. "Reach isn't everything, Ibrahim. What matters is the legacy you leave behind, and yours is only just beginning." In that moment, Traorè realized that this meeting wasn't a coincidence. Drogba's words weren't just praise. They were a powerful message about the true meaning of leadership and influence. Those words stayed with Traorè long after the encounter. As he walked again through the vibrant streets of Abidjan later that day, he couldn't stop thinking about what Drogba had said. "You're touching something far greater than I ever could." It echoed in his mind, challenging him, stirring him. He thought of Drogba's foundation, how it had built hospitals, funded schools, and improved the lives of thousands across Côte d'Ivoire and beyond. Why would a man with such extraordinary achievements say that what he was doing was even greater? Troubled yet intrigued, Traorè reached out to his close friend and longtime confidant, Moussa. He dialed the number with a quiet urgency. "Moussa, I need to talk," Traorè said when his friend picked up his voice laced with uncertainty. Something happened today, something that left me shaken. What happened? Musa asked, concerned. Traorè quickly recounted the unexpected encounter with Drogba and the words that had haunted him since. When he finished, there was a pause on the line. I understand your confusion, Musa finally said, but I think Drogba was trying to show you something important. Have you ever taken the time to consider the emotional Traorè repeated, puzzled? Yes, Musa continued. Drogba built schools and hospitals, but he did it using external aid. You're doing something different. You're inspiring people to believe in themselves. You're showing them that the power to transform is already in their hands, not in foreign donations. That changes mindsets. Ibrahim, that changes generations. Traorè fell silent, digesting the idea. He had never thought of it that way. His focus had always been practical, ensuring access to education, improving infrastructure, creating economic opportunities. But maybe, just maybe, something deeper was happening beneath the surface. Are you saying that my work is emotionally powerful because it helps people believe they can change their own reality? He asked. Exactly, Musa replied. You're planting seeds of self-belief and hope that goes far beyond any physical building. It's a kind of influence that transforms entire societies. The conversation left Traorè deep in thought. He began to see his mission from a new perspective, not just as a builder of schools or systems, but as someone who could ignite a fire within others. The next morning, during a quiet breakfast alone at his hotel, he opened his notebook and began writing down his thoughts, wanting to capture them before they were swept away by emotion. The greatest challenge may not be solving immediate problems, he wrote, but helping people believe they have the power to solve their own. Maybe leadership isn't about delivering solutions. It's about awakening potential. As the pen moved across the page, Traorè felt a new clarity settle over him. His work could transcend borders. It could influence not just Burkina Faso, but the entire African continent. Then, later that day, a message popped up on his phone. It was from Didier Drogba. Short, but deeply meaningful. Keep doing what you're doing, Ibrahim. The world needs leaders like you. Traorè read it several times, moved by the words. He understood now that this wasn't just a compliment. It was a responsibility. In the days following his encounter with Didier Drogba, Ibrahim Traorè couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental had shifted inside him. That brief but intense conversation had planted a new sense of purpose. One that went beyond solving problems, beyond policies, beyond even the tangible changes he was already helping to bring about. He began to rethink the very nature of his work, realizing he'd been so focused on immediate needs, building schools, ensuring clean water, setting up vocational programs, that he hadn't fully considered the long-term psychological shift he could ignite in his people. Drawing inspiration from Drogba's words and the deep conversation he had shared with Musa, Traorè decided to expand his vision. No longer would he limit himself to improving material conditions. He would begin a movement to transform the African mindset, to create a collective belief in self-reliance, dignity, and pride. One morning, while sipping a bitter coffee in a modest cafe in Ouagadougou, he received a call that would further propel this evolution. It was an international journalist who had been following his initiatives closely. Mr. Traorè, the journalist began, we're preparing a special feature on African leaders reshaping the continent. We'd like to highlight your work, and if you're willing, interview you about your future plans. Traorè paused, the weight of the invitation settling on his shoulders. He understood that global exposure could bring more attention, more support, and more momentum to his projects. But he also knew it would intensify the scrutiny, raise expectations, and add pressure. I'm honored, he finally said. But before I accept, there's something I want to make clear. I don't want to be portrayed as someone simply solving local problems. What I'm trying to do is bigger. It's about reshaping how we think about ourselves and our continent. The journalist was intrigued. Can you elaborate? He asked. Traorè took a deep breath, his voice steady. Africa has faced enormous challenges for centuries. And for just as long, solutions have mostly come from outside, foreign aid, international NGOs, development programs. But our true potential doesn't lie in what others give us. It lies in what we already have, in our people, in our minds. We have to stop waiting for others to save us and start believing we can save ourselves. He paused, letting the silence emphasize his point. My work isn't just about building infrastructure. It's about inspiring people to believe that change is possible, that they, too, hold the power to shape their own destiny. Even in the harshest conditions, we can find sustainable, creative solutions. That's the message I want to share. The journalist was visibly impressed. That's a powerful message, he said. I look forward to helping you tell it. The interview was scheduled for the following week, and Traorè spent the next few days carefully crafting his thoughts. He decided to use this moment not just to reflect on what had been done, but to launch something new. He called it African Minds, African Future, a program designed to promote education, entrepreneurship, and local innovation, empowering young Africans to develop solutions to the challenges in their own communities. When the day of the interview arrived, Traorè was surrounded by cameras, lights, and microphones. But he remained calm, passionate, intentional. He spoke from the heart, painting a vivid picture of the Africa he believed in. We cannot continue waiting for others to come save us, he said, his voice full of conviction. We have the resources, the talent, the creativity. What we need now is confidence and the will to work together. He leaned forward slightly, eyes locked with the interviewers. That's why I'm launching the African Minds, African Future program. We want to find young talents across the continent and give them the tools they need to bring their ideas to life. We're not just building schools, we're building minds. We're not just creating jobs, we're shaping leaders. The interview quickly went viral, shared across social media and news networks around the world. Viewers were drawn to Traorè's clarity, his authenticity, and the radical simplicity of his message. Believe in yourselves. Believe in your people. Build your own future. Messages began to pour in, encouragement from political figures, entrepreneurs, and activists across continents. But what moved Traorè most were the messages from young Africans who said they now believed in their potential, who saw a mirror of their own dreams in his words. Among them was Isa, the boy he had once met in a marketplace, now enrolled in school thanks to Traorè's support. Isa sent a message that struck Traorè deeply. Mr. Traorè, your words made me believe I could be more than I ever imagined. I want to be part of the change you're building. Traorè smiled as he read it, knowing this was exactly the kind of impact he had hoped to make. A spark had caught fire, and it was only the beginning. In the weeks that followed, Ibrahim Traorè began putting his expanded vision into action with renewed focus. He reached out to contacts across Africa, determined to take the momentum from his interview and translate it into tangible steps. He organized a Pan-African conference called Africa in Action, gathering leaders, innovators, and community builders to discuss creative, homegrown solutions to the continent's challenges. He invited Didier Drogba to be the keynote speaker. When Drogba took the stage, the room fell silent with anticipation. Standing before an audience of young dreamers and seasoned leaders alike, he began. When I met Ibrahim, I saw something that made me reflect on my own journey. He isn't just building schools or improving roads. He's transforming mindsets. He's showing Africans that they have the power to change their own realities. He paused, looking out across the room. I've always been proud of what I've done for Côte d'Ivoire, but Ibrahim reminded me of something crucial. True legacy doesn't lie in what we do for others. It lies in what we inspire others to do for themselves. The audience rose in a standing ovation. As Traorè watched with glistening eyes, he realized just how far this movement had come. He stepped on stage afterward to announce the next phase of his mission, a digital platform that would connect young African innovators across the continent. Today, he said, we're launching Men Africana, Futuro Africano, a space for young thinkers and creators to share ideas, resources, and solutions. A network of mentors, including leaders like Didier Drogba, will support these change makers in their journeys. By the end of the conference, hundreds of young Africans had already signed up. Among them was Isa, who sent another message. Mr. Traorè, I want to be part of this. You've shown me that even in the hardest moments, there's still hope. I want to help others find that same hope. Traorè smiled again, this time with a quiet sense of certainty. Isa was exactly the kind of change you wanted to see multiply. Young people, empower to dream beyond their circumstances, and uplift those around them. In the months that followed, Traorè continued to travel across Africa, visiting communities, spreading his message of self-reliance and pride. He met resistance, yes, but also enthusiasm, especially from youth who were hungry for something real, something that spoke to their lived experiences. Then one day, while walking through a remote village in Burkina Faso, he came across a small hand-painted sign hanging above the entrance of a modest school. It read, "Dream Without Limits," inspired by Ibrahim Traorè. At that moment, he felt it. Every effort, every setback, every sleepless night had been worth it. He wasn't just building schools or systems. He was building bridges between hearts and minds. Later that evening, back at home, Traorè received a final message from Didier Drogba. It was simple, but powerful. "You're changing Africa, Ibrahim. Keep going." He read it several times, letting the words settle deep in his spirit. He knew this wasn't just praise. It was a call, a reminder of what was at stake. Looking up at the stars, he whispered to himself, "The future of Africa is in our hands, and together we will build it." And if this story moved you, if it made you feel something, remember, collecting and structuring